All right, then I'm going to record it. And then at the end, what I'll do is I'll save it as a video. I'll put it on YouTube, but the only way you can watch it is if you have the link. So nobody can like search it and watch it. I'll send you the link. Okay. All right. So do you have a specific homework question you want to start with?
Let me see, because I actually have so many notes that I stayed up to like 2 a.m. trying to figure this out.
Yeah, I noticed that you had spent a lot of time on 1.5, and I'll tell you right now, 1.5 is a tricky one.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, normally I catch on pretty quick. Let me see.
To be honest with you, if the stuff in 1.5 was taught in a Algebra 1 or Algebra 2 class, it would be about 3 or 4 separate assignments. In this class, because it's a review, it's a lot of related topics, but a little bit different, all dumped together in one. So it is an unusually long section.
Okay, let me see. I also have some of my notes from when I took algebra, my first year of college.
Good.
From I think from Miss let me see, Miss Shauna McCowan.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I tell you, let's do this. Is there a specific homework question you'd like to start with? Because I can pull up your homework on the screen so that we can see it together.
Okay. Let me see.
Or do you want
to see or not?
1.5 or 1.6?
The 1.5.
Yeah, I don't blame you. All right, let me pull that
the
open.
1.6, I can pretty much work a problem like by myself.
Gotcha.
But the 1.5, I'm like so confused on.
Okay, right now you should be seeing question 6 from your homework 1.5. X plus 2 squared is equal to negative 49. And I went to that one because it's one of them that was marked wrong. Do you just want to look at the questions that you have marked wrong?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll start with this one. X plus 2 in parentheses squared equals negative 49. And I'm going to work it on this whiteboard here. So, so it's just like I'm sitting in a classroom. All right, so this is and just for documentation purposes, this is a homework 1.5 number. I forgot what question number it was. Let me look real quick. It was question number 6. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so this way, if you go look at it later, you'll remember where this came from. All right, so the question was to solve x plus 2 in parentheses squared equals negative 49. Now, before I jump into it and grab the ball and run, I want to pick your brain for a second. If I asked you to solve this, is there anything that jumps out at you to do first?
Because we want to get 0 to 0, right?
Well, sometimes you do. So let's get that sorted out first.
Okay.
And I'll come back to this question in a second. It's on the previous page. But when you were in 1.5, there were actually I want to say 4 different ways that you were shown to solve quadratic equations. The first way was to solve by factoring. The second way was to solve by using square roots. The third way was to solve by completing the square. And I'm a horrible typist, so don't be surprised if I make some mistakes here. And then the fourth way is to solve using the quadratic formula. All right. Now, of these 4, and I'm going to put some space in here. Of these 4 approaches, depending upon which one you use, determines whether or not you get it equal to 0. When you solve by factoring, you want to start by getting equal to 0. And when you solve by using the quadratic formula, you want to start by getting the equation equal to 0. So there are a couple of approaches that your first move is to make it equal to 0. But if you notice, I didn't say it on the 2 in the middle. I want to focus on the solve by using square roots, because half the battle in this section about quadratic equations is knowing what your best approach is, since you got 4 options. The only one that always works is the last one. It always takes time. It is always cumbersome, but it always gets the job done. The other 3 don't work all the time. That's not entirely true, but the other 3 usually don't work all the time, but they're faster when they're appropriate. For this particular equation, let's go back to it for a second. If you wanted to get this equal to 0, then you would have to move the 49 over. But The parentheses is also in the way. The left side of this is currently factored. And what it means for something to be factored is to be written as a multiplication problem. That literally means x plus 2 times x plus 2. That's what it means to square something. And to be factored means to be written as a multiplication problem. So the left side is written as a multiplication problem. The left side is already factored, which might make you think we want to use this approach since it's solving by factoring. Problem is we have to get it equal to 0 if we're going to use that approach. So if you wanted to get this equal to 0, it wouldn't necessarily be wrong. I don't know if it'd be the best move, and here's why. If you were to get this equal to 0, you would just, oops, come back. I'm not sure what just disappeared, but that's okay. Everything's still there. If you were to get this equal to 0, the correct move would be to add 49 to both sides, or at least try to add 49 to both sides, because that would cancel over here on the right and give you 0. But on the left side, even though you have some like terms, your like terms are this 2 and this 49, you can't put them together because that 2 is currently trapped inside the parentheses that has the square on it. So I can't put those numbers together. The only thing I could do at this juncture is write down x plus 2 in parentheses squared plus 49. Now, is this any better than before? It's debatable. If you're going to solve this using a technique that gets it equal to 0, in other words, if you're going to solve it by factoring or solve it by using the quadratic formula, then it's a necessary move. But both of those require you to not have parentheses yet. Parentheses are great unless you've got extra stuff lurking around like this plus 49 here. So if you were to push this forward, your only option next would be to actually write out the x plus 2 twice and then FOIL it. Do you know what I mean when I say FOIL?
Yes.
Okay, so let's pretend you FOIL this, and you would end up getting x squared plus 4x plus 4. I'm going to speed through that. And we still had the plus 49. And I ran out of room to put the 0. So give me 1 second to grab this and move it over some.
Okay.
Oops, ooh, didn't mean to do that. Try that one more time. Okay, grab and move. There we go. All right, so, and then we got these that we can put together now because that 4 is not trapped by the parentheses like the 2 was. So there's the x squared, there's the 4x. Those are not like terms. They don't have the same powers. And if I put together the 4 and the 49, I get 53. Now, we haven't solved a thing yet, but all we've done is now, and I'm gonna type this part if I can get a text box set up. Now we can either try to factor or use the quadratic formula. Told you I can't type worth or anything. I have no idea what I just spelled there. No, not too bad. Now we can try to either factor or use the quadratic formula because both of those techniques require the equation to be equal to 0. Now I've got a little bit of bad news. If you're going to try factoring, this guy won't factor. We could try to factor it. I'll tell you right now, it'll fail. It's prime. It won't factor. You could use the quadratic formula and it's going to get you to the answer. But this problem was not designed for either of those. I want to go back to the question in the homework real quick and look at the instructions a little bit more closely.
Okay.
Notice that this says solve the quadratic equation using the square root property. Now, if you're lucky and they tell you solve it this way, they are telling you the most efficient way to solve it. Now, if it had only said solve the quadratic equation, period, then you have to make a decision on how to approach it. And what we did on the whiteboard isn't necessarily wrong, but it's not the most efficient technique. And here's the reason why. If you go back to this list of techniques here, the one about solve by using square roots, this is only when there's a single x. That is the cue that you should consider solving using square roots. And if we go back to the problem, which I'm going to highlight it in yellow because it kind of got all hacked up a little bit. How many x's do you see in that problem?
1.
Bingo. So this is a perfect candidate for solving using square roots, solving a quadratic equation using square roots. And again, it's not that what we've done on the screen so far is wrong. It's just not the most efficient approach. I am going to put an or here, and then we're going to continue this on the next page.
Okay.
We're going to solve this using square roots, not just because it suggested it in the problem, but because it's a quadratic equation with a single x term. And when you solve using square roots, there is a very straightforward process. If you were watching the videos and took notes, you probably saw this list, how to solve using square roots.
Yes.
Okay. Square roots. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and type it so it's inside of this video, even if it's in your notes. See, these are the types of things you want in your notes when the test comes around. All right. Number one is to isolate the squared expression. I don't remember which noun I used there. I might have said squared part or squared term, but something has a square on it and you want to isolate it. And what that means is you find the part that has the square on it. And the way you know who has the square on it is you look immediately to its left. This is kind of a trick question, but you see the two that's highlighted? What is immediately to its left?
The 2.
Nope. You skip some. What's between the two twos?
It's the parenthesis.
Correct. That square belongs, I told you it's a trick question. That square belongs to that parentheses, which means it belongs to both parentheses and whatever's inside of them. So that square belongs to all of that. So the squared expression is highlighted and it's already isolated in the sense that there's nothing else on the left side of the equal sign that I didn't highlight. So that's what it means to isolate the squared expression, get rid of everything else around it. That's not a case here. In fact, I'm going to back up into the step and preface it with if necessary, because sometimes it is already isolated. But once you do that, your second move is to square root both sides
of the equation.
Right. And when you do this, two things happen. Number one, you cancel the square. That's the purpose of isolating the square so that you can cancel it with the square root. And then you have to use plus minus, and I can't type a plus minus in here. So I can just spell it on the other side. I'm going to widen this text box just a little bit. All right, so we're going to break out a square root here. And I'm going to recopy the equation because I like to preserve the original equation before I start manipulating it. So there's what it looked like before, and here's what it looks like now. Now, two things happen. On the left, the square and the square root cancel. That just leaves the x plus 2. Which is good because my goal is to get the x by itself. And I just got rid of one thing that was preventing that goal. I got rid of the square. Now, on the right side, you use a plus minus. And I should also say, and I'm going to go back into the text box just for a second, use plus minus on the other side and simplify the square root as much as possible. I'm going to run out of space here, but I know a way to fix it. 1 second.
Okay.
All I have to do is drop the font size. There we go. Okay, so we're going to simplify the square root as much as possible. Now, this square root that we're about to simplify, I'm about to put it in a blue box. This kind of problem is the type of work that we did back from 1.4, so the previous homework assignment, about square rooting negative numbers. When you square root a negative number, first off, you square root the number without the negative. The square root of 49 is 7. And when you square root a negative number, it picks up an I, it becomes an imaginary number. And again, that's from the previous homework assignment, which is why it was the previous homework assignment, because it was going to show up in the middle of this one. But if you can get past that move, then your third step is to finish solving for x. Because remember, this is goal oriented. Your goal is to get the x by itself. So every move that you do is geared towards that goal. In this case, the only thing I have to do now is get rid of the plus 2. So I'm going to do a minus 2 on both sides. That will let me cross out the plus 2 and the minus 2, which gets my goal. My goal is to get the x by itself. And then normally what you try to do on the other side is to try to put these things together. The problem is the things in the green box. The problem is one of the numbers has an I and the other one doesn't. So they're not like terms. I can't put them together. Whenever you try to put things together, but you can't, like back here, when we tried to put the 49 over here and we couldn't, at least not yet. Whenever you try to put things together that you can't, the best thing you can do is write them side by side. I'm going to write the part without the I first, the real number, -2, and then the plus or minus 7i afterwards. That's the best I can do to put together those two things because they can't be put together. Now, normally what you would do here, it doesn't happen in this case, but if possible, split the plus minus and simplify both answers. The reason it's not really possible here, I mean, it's possible to split them, don't get me wrong. I can take them apart, but it's not really going to get me anything. So what happens next is you could write it as two answers. X equals -2 plus 7i, comma, -2 minus 7i. Sometimes when you take apart the plus minus, you can actually finish the two answers. Like if the i's weren't there, if that I wasn't there and that I wasn't there, then I could finish them. -2 plus 7 is 5. -2 minus 7 is -9. But the i's are there. So I can't finish them. And this would be my final answer.
Oh, it makes more sense now.
I'll be honest, it's easier to follow an explanation than to come up with the explanation yourself. But almost everything in this problem, from deciding how to start it to pushing it to the end, is motivated by the goal of getting the X by itself. The thing that sets off the plan of attack is the fact that it's a quadratic equation, which means it has a square, but it only has a single X, which means I can solve it using square roots. All right, let's just start stripping down the X until it's by itself. And then you got to watch out for the little things like the plus minus showing up on the right side when you square root both sides of the equation.
Gotcha.
Did you have any questions about this particular problem?
No, I actually broke that down.
Oh, good. Oh, one other thing I can do is when we finish this video, every page that I wrote on, this page, this page, and any other pages, I can actually save them as a PDF file and send you that. So it's like sending you the notes that we're writing down.
Now, can I also use these during my notes, like for my test?
I would prefer you to only use what you write down.
Okay.
So if you write it all down, that's fine.
Right. Okay.
Right, because otherwise what people would do is they would just find a billion things online, print them out and use that. And that's what I don't want you to do. I want people to be able to benefit from their own work, namely writing stuff down. But you're welcome to write it all down.
Because I have 1,000 notes.
You know, before your test, you might want to consider reviewing your notes and making a short version of them to use on your test. Not that you couldn't use the complete version of them, but let's say you have 50 pages of notes.
Right.
Then you're going to spend a lot of time flipping through your notes on your test. You might want to make a summary of your notes, if you will.
Okay.
All right, here's the key things I think I'm going to need. And then if I need more detail, I can go look in my big version of my notes. It's just a recommendation. You got 2.5 hours for the test. I think you're going to have plenty of time.
So definitely I can use where I wrote down how to solve.
Yes.
Okay.
If you wrote down everything that's on the screen, that's part of your notes. You can use it.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Would you like to go to another homework question?
I think that was it for so far. I was homework 1.5. And if I have anything else, I will reach back out.
Okay, well, just so it's part of the recording, I want to do you a favor. I'm just going to click on these. We're not going to work them all. I'm just going to give you some suggestions. This one uses the quadratic formula. When you use the quadratic formula on this one, you're going to end up square rooting a negative number. You're going to have an I in your answer somewhere. So those okay, so those are the only two questions there. Let me go back to here for a second. I want to go to, no, that's not where I want to go. I want to go here. All right, I want to go back to, and I want to look at 1.6 real quick. You did some pretty good damage on 1.6. I'm sorry. Yeah, 1.6 in a decent amount of time.
I think that was way better than 1.5.
Yeah, I think it is too. I'm just wondering what this last question is you haven't done yet, just to give some insight. Oh yeah,
Okay.
this one's actually going to be real easy. If you get into it, you'll see why, but I'll just
Okay.
leave it at that. All right, did you have anything else you wanted to ask about real quick?
So regarding the final exam,
Mhm.
do is that considered homework, or is that do we have a final exam at the end of the course?
There is an exam at the end of the course. It is not
Okay.
it is not comprehensive.
Okay.
So the last test you take is basically just test 4.
Okay. Test 4. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
All righty.
All right. When this is
Okay. Got
ready, no problem. When this is ready, I will send you the link to the YouTube
Uh-huh.
video, and I'll also send you this as a PDF.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Mhm.
All right. Bye.